It is the 19th of the 1st, 2026. The time is 22 minutes past 8. And as always, that means that there are a multitude of F1 centric threads at which we need to pull. We'll talk about Lewis Hamilton's engineer. His next one, Adami, no longer of the pasture that is Lewis Hamilton race engineership. So too, we'll talk about Adrian Newey and Aston Martin. The Spanish F1 media are going full send on Fernando Alonso as WDC champion. You know what I mean? 2026, we'll talk about it. So too, we'll talk about Toyota. We'll talk about all the livery unveils, etc. So too, Scuderia Ferrari and some overalls. Let me show you this in the first instance because it's techier than techie things this week. The next livery launch will, of course, be tomorrow. Audi setting shortly thereafter on Thursday, I want to say 22nd. It is Mercedes, big dog time. Scuderia Ferrari on the 23rd, so too Alpine on the 23rd, and it's going to get techier than techie. I cannot wait. Can we just race already? Well, why not just race? What happened to all this livery launch? I am through with this hiatus. Now, let me show you this as well. Test dates. 26th to the 30th is a private shakedown. Whoopie-doo. Zero footage. And of course, AI, the aggregating the civilian F1 journos, will run amok, run roughshod over the official line. So too, it's important that you remember, test one proper at Bahrain will be the February the 11th to the 13th. February the 18th to the 20th will be the final test. Oh, the humanity. It gets so techie, and it will get properly techie as far as the bloody active aero, the suspension, the bloody power units, etc. Let me show you these two Ferrari buds. And again, all indications around Scuderia Ferraris that they might be a little bit behind, that logistically they might be struggling, that their power unit might not be as good as Mercedes. So too, the fuel that they're using by dint of Shell might not be market leading. Frederick Vasseur has 5 races to turn this around, and if he doesn't build himself and Lewis and Charles a god tier car, then it's over. Full stop, new paragraph. Move on swiftly. Frederick Vasseur. Oh, and by the way, politically, it doesn't even feel like John Alcan fancies himself some Frederick Vasseur. But then they put on a good front, these guys. Lewis, Charles. Nothing to see over here at the red team with the yellow badge and the black prancing horse atop.
LH. Back in Maranello. We are.
Can we speak honestly, Jack? Can we speak honestly? I don't like the overalls. I don't like those red overalls are supposed to be red. This is why everybody hated the positioning of the HP logo. Why have you got this bloody big blue splodge on a red car with a yellow badge and a black prancing horse atop? It makes no sense. And then you get the, again, PR overload from Scuderia Ferrari. The boys and girls over there being Charles Leclerc and Sir Lewis having a cheeky chat with each other behind the scenes. Roll the clip. I don't know, chat. I don't know what you want me to say. I'm not loving it. I don't like the placement of the HP logo. Again, I know that they paid a gazillion pounds to Scuderia Ferrari for that, but the rest of the bloody overalls. Now there's 2. They got one on the bloody emblem and one in the midriff as far as these H Hewlett Packard logos. That's the first thing. The white, I don't know. It just looks like do you guys remember wearing Kappa back in the day? It looks like they've designed them at the altar of I just disagree vehemently. I do not like them. Now, of course, if they're fast and they're going to win 24 races, then everybody will be buying these Ferrari emblazoned overalls though and apparel. However, if they lose, as they have made an industry out of doing, no one will buy those ugly bits and bobs. Even Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc can't make those grubby overalls look good. What are we doing here? Oh, and by the way, Haas dropped a cheeky reveal video, didn't they? Shall we take a look?
Let's play.
It's snazzy. I don't hate it. I want to Debbie Downer it, and no, I don't hate it. There's the angle. You can't hate it really from that angle, especially when compared against previous Haas fare. Lest we forget, Colgate GP is what they referred to. The bloody blue, white and red that so typifies the America's F1 team. But they've been a bit sexier. I would argue, not to disrespect the Star Spangled Banner. If you ask me, I think that's an infinitely sexier car. Oh, and by the way, it gets a bit techier than techie things. A couple bits, and this is the first the humanity for real, Mr. RP. This Turtle Dove, they say, is the first car that we're seeing proper. No renders, no mule car, no misdirection. This is a car proper, some say, and there are lessons therefore from this that we can take. In the first instance, you'll know that Haas are using Ferrari engines, that their power units will dictate some of the positioning around the gearbox and the bloody suspension. You will recall Ayako last year said, you know what, all of this suspension tinkering that Scuderia Ferrari are going to do this year in 2025 is diminishing returns. Why would you do it in the final? Do such a gargantuan change? Why would you institute for the impossible? Try and climb the impossible design philosophy that is changing all of the suspension settings in the final year of a rule and reg set. It makes no sense. Sometimes in Formula One, common sense is very uncommon. Komatsu said, "You know what, mate? We'll stick with this double push rod suspension." To which Ferrari said, "No, we're going to change ours. Pull rod at the front, push rod at the back." Finally converging to the Adrian Newey thesis, the meta for 1 year. Now all of a sudden it looks like everybody's gone back to double push rods all over the shop front and rear. This is a car proper, and I don't hate it. I think it looks sexy. I'll be honest with you. Now again, whether it goes fast is a completely different thing. Look, there's a couple. In fact, let me make this a bit smaller so you guys can see on the bottom. And again, this comes courtesy of Jake Boxall, leg over at Autosport. I want you to pay attention to this bottom right note. Active aero actuator under the nose. Apparently, for some reason, that's quite important, somebody says. But again, my infinitely, my brain is too small. I'm too noddy and F1 mind to understand what that means. Again, that will play a part, some say. It's a design philosophy. It's a decision that you have to make where you place the actuator under or over the nose, and different teams will therefore compare. They will take different approaches. Do you think Ferrari can win this year with two drivers pushing for two different cars, different setup styles, says G-Man? It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, depending on who you're talking to, some people say that that's probably the best way, right? That you want to get a Charles Leclerc and a Carlos Sainz, so that you get hybridization, that the quickest car will be somewhere in between. But then some will say you just want yourself a Max Verstappen, right? Build the car only for him, and that will get yourself the quickest machine. Depends on who you're speaking to. Go on, and let me show you this as well. This is important. This is the Haas brand new Haas car, 2026 iteration of bottom right. And a lot of people are comparing the side pods to this. I want to say it's the F175, a historic F1 Scuderia Ferrari car. And the side pods do look the bloody same, don't they? Maybe they're stolen. Maybe history in F1 doesn't repeat, but sometimes it does rhyme. Various different iterations of F1 Haas car. And again, your graphic on the right hand side of your screen is per the race. Interesting, this, I would argue that the middle one looks also very sexy, but the bottom right, the 2026 iteration, by far the sexiest Haas car ever been made, in my humble opinion. There you go. You've got the Evolution 2023 bottom right. Again, it was much more black, and I get the joke that the racer saying that it does look like the printer has run out ever so slightly, and that's why the 2026 car is so. I like it though. I don't hate it, Tiliora. It's a decent looking car. Oh, and by the way, Max Verstappen has rocked up in a suit. I don't hate it, but I wouldn't hate any Max Verstappen picture. I mean, do you know what I mean? Not a bad peddler, some say. But the overalls, what are we doing? I'm not a big fan. I don't see what we're doing here. I don't get it. Okay, so they've of course they've gone back to the old Red Bull logo outlined in white, which is good news. But the rest of it looks I just don't get it. It just looks messy to me. I'm not a big fan. And then you get this. What are we doing here, chat? I'm not a big fan. Actual rims, 100%. Stephen, you make the point. In fact, let me flip back up so you guys can see. We have rims proper. Here we go. You get it on this, mate. There is wiggle room for these manufacturers, these teams, to design their own wheel alloy, or not quite alloy, but it's not the wheel cover that we become so used to Halford settings. No chance. Let me show you this though. What are we doing? Are you guys big fans of that Max Verstappen over? I'm not. I don't like it. I'll be honest with you. Oh, and by the way, got another piece of news that Hulkenberg is apparently getting paid, massively incentivized to go and get points. In addition, say our friends over in F1 Reddit, in addition to the reported annual 5 million euros worth of salary, he has a hefty bonus package included in his contract as Nico Hulkenberg, formerly of the Sauber parish, now of Audi. According to media reports, the now 38-year-old Nico Hulkenberg is 38. Oh, how time flies when you're having fun. Set to receive an extra 50,000 euros for every point scored. Oh my gosh, you could take them to the cleaners, eh? Last year, he sensationally finished third at Silverstone. That alone would have earned him an extra 750,000 for a single race. Oh, the humanity. Let's go, Nico Hulkenberg, mate. You've set yourself up to win here, especially if you can get a couple. Imagine if you got a race win. Oh, the humanity. Money, 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 Nico Hulkenberg. But let me show you this as well. McLaren settings. It's a good shout, Blade Runner. It would indeed be reminiscent of Kimi Raikkonen, who damn near took Lotus to the cleaners. McLaren starting up their power unit, and of course it's a Mercedes power unit, for they are a customer team into 2026. Not that Toto likes that. He said already his intention going forward is to whittle down the number of teams to which they provide power units and extend their durable competitive advantage. McLaren, as at the time of writing, depending on who you talk to, loads of people are saying that McLaren will have the advantage, the fastest car going into 2026. The car won't all of a sudden get slow. They were the quickest last year for the vast majority of the season. Add to that the fact that there are lessons learned that they can take into 2026. Just because ground effect area is gone doesn't mean that they are starting from ground zero. They have Rob Marshall, who is a god tier 1, who will of course take advantage of the active aero, understanding it more than most, all potentially apart from the one that they call the last airbender, Adrian Newey. To that point, McLaren, some say, should be favourite for the constructors, but they are not. Mercedes are. Run the championship, the constructors, 100 times, and simulations, the odds makers say McLaren will win 34% of the time. Mercedes will see them that and raise them 38% of the time. Mercedes, therefore, some say, experts say, have the whip hand. They have the god tier power unit, god tier efficiency, leveraging the compression ratios, etc., etc. Back against them, therefore, at your peril. Oh, and by the way, I need to talk to this. There's been a lot of chatter over the last 24 hours about a race engineer called Ricardo Adami. It wasn't good, was it, last year between Ricardo and Sir Lewis Hamilton? Why don't you take your time, lads? It's not like we're driving F1 full send settings where every millisecond counts. That's what Lewis Hamilton was saying. Give me more information and then give me less. Ricardo Adami simply couldn't traverse the very fine line necessary to become a god tier race engineer working with Sir Lewis Hamilton. It was one of a gazillion problems that Lewis had, but it was one of the most notable, visible. He was loud in his incompetence. What was even louder is their incompatibility, especially when juxtapositioned against Bono, Peter Bonington, the man with whom Lewis won all his championships except for one. They had a brilliant relationship. Bono knew how to manage Sir Lewis, Carl Davidson, Hamilton, and Ricardo Adami didn't. Now, of course, they've flotsam and jetsam race engineer settings. They've repositioned him, giving him another role to work with the academy and the junior drivers. Who then, the question on everybody's lips, will replace him? Well, here's one theory. There's a chap, Luca Diella is this fella's name, and currently sits as a performance engineer over at Scuderia Ferrari. Oh, the humanity. Previously, he worked at Mercedes-AMG High Performance Powertrains. He was a trackside performance engineer that Lewis will know and have worked with, therefore he'll have length of service. He'll know Lewis Hamilton, and potentially they'll be infinitely more compatible, or at least a little bit more compatible than was the one that they call Ricardo Adami. They've got a way to go with Scuderia Ferrari, is the honest truth. I think they've got things to do. Listen, if they build a good car, then that's a good start. But I think it's more than that. It's the politics and the bloody rancor, the false seeming, trying to pretend like nothing's wrong. I mean, they've done that for the past 20 years as near as makes no difference when everything has been wrong. I think they want to be honest with themselves. Just, do you know what I mean? Stop pandering to the Italian media. I understand it's a pressure cooker. The Tifosi are demanding, but bloody Nora, build yourself a car and keep it simple, stupid. Make sure you seize the low-hanging fruit. This is basics. This isn't rocket science. Nor am I trying to solve for Fermat's last theorem. Just do the basics and then let's see where we go. Go on, let me tell you about this then. Toyota. Apparently, they diverted 1/3 of their budget in the year previously allocated to the WRC program to Formula One. In conjunction with, of course, Haas, they're looking to do bits. In addition, Natchez of Twitter says all TPC tests will be operated by Toyota personnel. I feel like this is portending, is it not, a potential takeover. Proper Toyota looking to get back into F1 because it's hip now. Everybody wants a piece. Their intention, some say, is to return to Formula One without making much noise or official announcements. I mean, this is a reverse acquisition if ever I've heard of one or seen one, looking to sneak in the back door at Toyota. But the problem for me is this. Toyota were in F1 once upon a time, but as soon as it got hard, as soon as times got difficult, financial resources, 2008 subprime crisis, they packed their bags and left for the hills. And I don't think that's proper. I don't think it's fair that they get to come back into F1 like that. Do you know what I mean? What you don't want is club hoppers of F1 teams. You want those who were there for the long haul, who were stern, who were robust in terms of their financial resources and their balance sheet, and so too have the commitment from their C-suite exec level bods to stay for the long haul. Now, isn't that what you want? And I'm not sure Toyota are that if passed is prologue. Oh, and by the way, this Adrian Newey thing gets more, I swear, by the day and the second, it gets techier and techie things. In the first instance, all F1 journals are created equally, but some are created more equal than others. Soy Motorsport, again, Spanish F1 media outlet, have said some things. It feels like they're rallying around their man, Fernando El Plan Alonso, hoping desperately that he can be true to his 10-1 odds. Loads of people are backing this dude for the championship. Somebody knows something. But again, it depends on who you're talking to, right? Because the conjecture and speculation around F1 and teams and advantage going into the start of the season is always it's at record highs right now because nobody's got anything else to do. Here's what I've heard. In the first instance, it was an Aston Martin that their car was overweight, that they hadn't even crash tested the thing, that they couldn't even attach a PU to the chassis. Now we hear that people are leaving because Adrian Newey is working them too hard. He's got them on 60-hour working week. That's techier than techier. I didn't know that Adrian Newey was a slave driver. Of course, he would demand of his people the upper echelon, like the best market leading standards, because he's Adrian Newey. I wouldn't expect anything less. But is this edifying? Is this conducive to winning a championship of the drivers and or constructors variety? Here's what's being written. 60-hour weekly shifts that workers are just sacking it off because they're being forced to dine and sleep in the bloody factory. The place is so brutal. The pace and place Aston Martin is so brutal that people are just like, you know what, I've had enough. It's techie. Oh, and by the way, as far as Aston Martin, here's what the rumor word on the F1 curve is saying. That the car, as far as Adrian knew, the way that he's designed it and applied his very unique F1 mind, lest we forget, he's the last airbender. He can see airflow. People are saying that the car is radical all over the shop, not just in terms of aero, but everything, the chassis, the bloody, the suspension, everything. And again, you can't do that unless you are a works team. Honda are providing the PU exclusively to Aston Martin, and that's why they can do some of these sexy things. But maybe you wouldn't expect anything else from Adrian Newey. No. This article, again, courtesy of soymotor.com, says that they're extending areas. All of the radical thesis extends to all areas. There's not one thing. It isn't a double diffuser scenario. They rolled the dice proper and played all their jokers, because what else have they got to lose? Their stop loss is tight. They've been losing as near as makes no difference every single year for the past 5. Carbon fibre zones, merchants, that has been their natural habitat because they didn't have the car. They're wasting the natural talent, the god tier natural talent, and the final years in F1 of Fernando El Plan Alonso. This article writes, if the AMR26 has to be summed up in one word, it would be, quote, radical. And this isn't just a superficial description, nor is it limited to what can be seen externally. The car's radical nature goes far beyond its visible aerodynamics, extending to areas that traditionally receive less media attention, but which are crucial to the overall performance of a modern-day F1 car. Adrian Newey's role is key to understanding this approach. His expertise extends beyond aerodynamic design. The Briton is a comprehensive engineer with direct influence on packaging, suspension, weight distribution, and in general the car's entire architecture. You know, it feels like this publication feels like they've just now gone off and read how to build a car. Adrian Newey's book, in which he talks about the importance of a synchronicity of design philosophy. Don't go and do what Mercedes did in 2021, which is go over away in one segment of the factory and design your chassis over here, your aero over here, your suspension over. No, you've got to be synchronized all over the board. That's why Red Bull had the quickest car between 2022 and 2023, 24, some say, because it was the ability of Adrian Newey to design a car holistically. This article continues, in this context, one of the most relevant focuses that AMR 26 would be the internal ducts, a less glamorous area from the outside, but critical for aerodynamic and thermal efficiency. Optimizing what's unseen can make as much of a difference as a new wing or a redesigned floor. Do you remember seeing Adrian Newey just eyeing up the McLaren? Do you remember too that last year's McLaren, the MCL39, one of its strengths was what? Thermal efficiency. Of course, it was all the tyre water and their ability to mitigate for the rate at which the tyres, particularly the ones at the rear, were degging. This radical approach, continues this article, has an explanation. Aston Martin can afford it. For the first time, the team operates as a factory structure directly linked to an engine manufacturer, Honda, opening up a range of technical and integration opportunities that did not exist before. Added to that is this key element: the team manufactures its own gearbox, a step that means technological independence but also enormous challenges. So, I mean, which way do you take that? I've been hearing from a gazillion different people that it's struggle over there, that some of the key head honchos over at Aston Martin are ruining the fact that they didn't continue their relationship with Mercedes, especially since it sounds like Mercedes have built the god tieriest of power units, providing, of course, not just to themselves, Alpine, Williams and McLaren. Oh, and by the way, speaking of Williams, let me touch on this quickly before I finish reading out this Aston Martin article. Helmut Marko said he sounded like Williams are doing good, but other sources are reporting that Williams might not even make it to Barcelona. They might not be ready. The chassis is chaos, suspension is chaos, logistical efforts, best efforts are failing. It is chaos over there at Williams, and they have a god tier power unit in the Mercedes one. It is precisely in this area, as far as the PU, that some of the greatest difficulties have been encountered. Remember, sources said that their PU was overweight and underpowered, that they'd missed out, had Honda, on the god tier compression ratios that Mercedes and Red Bull Ford have understood and are leveraging and weaponizing to a lesser extent. So potentially they might need some god tier synthetic sustainable fuel from Aramco, lest they wish to be backmarked as carbon fiber zone inhabitants in perpetuity. Developing the transmission, continues this article, demands not only mechanical precision but also absolute integration with the rest of the car. According to the information obtained by this publication, soymotor.com, Newey is even involved in such specific aspects as the gearbox wiring, a detail that illustrates the extent to which the project's technical control is exhaustive. Can you spell Adrian Newey micromanager? And I mean, we already know that he's got his little spies, Game of Thrones little fingers, reporting back to him on the progress, the extent to which various departments across Aston Martin are expediting for their learning curve. Or otherwise, ultimately, the AMR 26 is not simply a new car, but a statement of intent. Aston Martin, continues Soy Motor, backed by Honda and technically led by Adrian Newey, has decided to explore uncharted territory. Whether this radical approach translates into an on-track performance remains to be seen, but the message is clear. The team is not here to ensure a relatively calm start and follow trends, but to try and set them. Oh, the humanity. Let's go. I love the fighting tour. But you know, I don't buy it. I'm not buying it. You tell me whether I'm being too stubborn in my judgment of Aston Martin. I remember in 22 when they'd not long signed Dan Fellows, and everybody said, well, that's a green Bull. Look at how look at their down sloping side pods. It looks just like the Red Bull, but it doesn't work like that. You can't copy paste these genius solutions, and Dan Fellows tried, but it just couldn't work. So as far as Aston Martin are concerned, I'm not sure. They're going to have to show me. You know what I mean? I will reserve judgment until further notice. I need to see the evidence, something, speed that I can touch and feel before I start jumping on the Fernando Alonso train. Is Fernando capable of a driver of winning a world championship at the ripe old age of 44, soon to be 45? Of course, he's not a bad pet. Father Time is undefeated, undisputed. And bet your bottom dollar if he had a Max Verstappen or a Charles Leclerc alongside him in that car, we might be having a different conversation. But alongside Stroll, if Adrian Newey delivers a god tier car, as he has done a gazillion times throughout his F1 career, can Alonso win races and therefore championships? Of course he can. And then you realise that a lot of money is coming in for Fernando Alonso. Only a few weeks ago, 18-1. Bet £1 and you get 18 back. Walk away with 19 quid total. That's some return. Those were his odds a couple of weeks ago. Now you can barely get tens. Ergo, his price, his odds have halved, and the only reason why that happens is because the odds makers are trying to balance the books, meaning therefore a lot of money has come in for him, whether that's in the no money or just noddy punters and speculators like me and you. I don't know. Luke, you're a legend. I appreciate you, mate. Copy and paste does not account for the development path and adjustments 100%. They've said they're going to go hard as far as their ability to develop the car over the course of the year, and they're not the first nor the last, G-man. Like, I mean, Red Bull are saying the same thing. Honda will be a disappointment, says Nando. It wouldn't be the first time, right? I was listening to Colossally, that's history, with Matt Bishop and Richard Williams, and they've got a special on Honda and their multitudinous their successes, of course, but it feels like their failures are much more frequent, multitudinous than are their successes. I'm talking about Honda, of course, here. 6-wheel Tyrrell incoming. Oof. Oof. That was a bad car. Patience is a virtue, which I don't have, John. Indeed, G-Man. Well, we have to be paid. Yeah, no. I hope they do well. I hope they do well. It's interesting, though. Let me tell you this as we round third. It's interesting to see the bias. I mean, for the longest time, the Spanish media have accused F1 of being British biased. But they do love to get around Fernando Alonso, their guy. Magic, as the DAZN commentators refer to him as. It's interesting to see them get around their guy and support him and lean into these rumours. All of the positive Aston Martin ones, forgetting all the bad ones. That potentially their power unit is underwhelming, potentially overweight, potentially therefore their car overweight going into test session. What? Listen, I'm telling you, it's going to get touchier than touchy things, and I'm here for it, for Pete's sake. Get these cars on the track. Open up the doors, Formula One. What are we doing with this private testing? Don't get me mad. Honestly, I don't want to go scorched earth as we round third, but F1 sometimes leave me with no option. Drive to Survive is coming out in less than a month. Well, just over a month. And you mean to tell me, F1, that you're about to have a test in private? You're about to just have this content just be left on all of it be left on the cutting room floor. What are we? Why? This absolutely makes no sense. In 2026, January of, you're choosing to close the doors so that you can be prim and proper in case there are any reliability issues in a brand new rule and a reg spec. No, thank you. It's nonsense. Will be very interesting first few races. Blade Runner 100%. Neil says Ferrari coming with a banger PU. Watch this space. Who told you that, Neil? Who told you that, fella? I'd put a pin in that, Neil, and we will revisit it. I'm hearing too many different things around. I mean, no. But we'll revisit it. I promise. What a waste of footage, indeed. My sentiments exactly, Graham. They've dropped the ball. But as far as F1, what else would you expect? Liam Parker only a couple of weeks ago was saying, wow, F1's not even a sports franchise anymore. It's content. Everything is content. And then they get to Barcelona and they decide not to film anything just because the teams are so scared that they might face some reliability issues. Why don't you go and cry me a river, F1 teams, for it's not acceptable. F1 throwing money away with this private test, as they always tend to do, right? 24.5 billion as a market capitalization, not too bad though. You know, if Honda can't deliver the engine, Fernando will go scorched earth again. GP2 engine, Anthony. GP2 engine. GP2. You must always leave S-space. You must always leave S-space. You guys have been legends, one and all. I appreciate you guys to the moon and back ad nauseam. Between now and next time, the prosecution rests. No further questions, Your Honour.